everyone. This is Raphael.
I'm Loryn.
We're the Pacheco siblings, and welcome to the Hypercube podcast, a talk show where two siblings converse about anything and everything. How you doing?
I am doing better. It's been not raining like crazy, so
Yeah, we're kind of in the morning for you as well. So I think our earlier podcast recording kind of woke you up, though.
yeah.
So. Yeah, you were just telling me before we began rolling about your con adventures, because you recently got to go to a convention over in your neck of the woods.
Went to Supanova. Supanova. Yeah, we went to Supanova, anime pop culture convention. Really fun. First convention experience, and I feel bad because you know how people talk about you go to a con, you get the con flu, right? Because it's just like tons of people packed together in a tight space. And of course, obviously, there's the COVID consideration now as well. But like, I feel bad because I was like going in, I was ready. I had like hand sanitizer. I was wearing a mask, and just like, okay, let's not get the con flu. But I think I was patient zero for the con flu at that con. I was sick because.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the flu or just a cold or what was going on, but I was not well. By the like halfway through our con adventures, I was just like, I was out. I was just sitting on the floor going,
Now, did you know going in that you were sick, or did you realize partway through the experience?
I didn't know that I was sick, but I could like that morning I could feel it's like not feeling too great. Throat's a little iffy, but you know, it'll probably go away because like sometimes you wake up in the morning, your throat's a little wet, whatever.
Yeah. You got like that pre-sickness.
Yeah, we got going, and then it's like we're on the train, we're getting ready, and it's just like I got a bit of a headache, but we're just stressed because we're moving from one thing to another. We had last minute plans for like costume changes and stuff like that. I was like, I got a bit of a headache, but that's whatever. Get to the con, it's like we're just going. And then halfway through, I'm like, no, I'm sick. Yeah, this is a sick. I'm like, this is no good.
Oh, man, what a horrible time to get sick.
I know. And I feel bad because like I touched so much stuff.
Running through, touching everybody's stuff. Yeah, so you're telling me about some of the cool booths and stuff. Like you said, we were talking about minis a little bit because I still got some minis left on my shelf to paint. Ever since I moved, I haven't really had the chance to interact with those too much, and I still need to. What's that glaze called? That's a
sealant.
There's a more technical name than that, though.
Because the priming is the first one. What's the last one?
Yeah. You know what? Screw Google. I'm just going to look at the can. It's over here.
Yeah, just look at the can. It's on there.
Varnish. But yeah, I still need to varnish some of the minis that we painted before. But I still have a few left to paint. I was talking about that. And yeah, you were saying there was a mini painting booth at Supanova as well.
Yeah, it was crazy. There was just this whole area with like, I think it was two areas that got smashed, or two different people groups or whatever that kind of got smashed into one because they were related. Because one area was mini painting and the other area was straight up D&D. It was just like it was just D&D table set up. I don't know how the logistics of it worked because I only saw that at the end of our like convention walking around and stuff. So I was like, if only I saw it earlier. I don't know if you have to sign up or if you just like could drop in the middle of a one shot or anything like that. But there's one area where they're just straight up playing D&D, and the other one they're painting minis. And I was like, I didn't know you could do that at a con. Just like I thought it was just like products and places selling and advertising and doing all this stuff, and of course like announcing new stuff for whatever's going on.
At least if you're not Gen Con. In Gen Con, you would expect something like that. Gen Con is the big tabletop one. Yeah.
Because this was just, I think it was just anime and, not anime, but like just pop
just general
culture.
pop
I don't know
culture.
I don't know if it was anime and pop culture or if it was just pop culture and anime is pop culture now. But
yeah, what is a Supanova anyway? So,
let's double check.
Yeah, what is their official shtick?
Their shtick.
How do they build themselves?
Comic-Con gaming.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
simple enough.
Focusing on science fiction, fantasy, film and TV, comic books, anime, gaming, and collectibles. Yeah.
No, that just about covers everything. So there you go.
Fandoms. Yeah. So
yeah,
I was like, yeah, I didn't know you could have like experiences at a convention where it's like, oh, yeah, we're just gonna go down and just play D&D, which also blew my mind because there was this LARPing community that was advertising their community, and they had a whole area sectioned off where you could fight people.
Yeah, that blew my mind that you mentioned that.
Yeah, they handed you swords, and the people from the community, I guess the people who run it, they were all dressed up in a different age or in a different like class or theme or whatever. Like there was a rogue with like double daggers. There was like this big big Viking guy with a massive axe. There was a dude in knight armor with a long sword, and it was sick. Like their LARP outfits were top notch. It was sick. But yeah, you just got in line, you paid a little thing, get a ticket, and then I think you get like 10 minutes of fighting. You can either partner up with somebody else or partner up with one of the guys there, and then they'll run you through different stuff. Like, you know, it's like, okay, we're gonna play 5 lives each, and go. one hit is 1 life, and then we're gonna do free for all. Then we're gonna do a bunch of other stuff. It was super fun.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. You just got like a fight pit over in one corner.
Yeah.
Basically.
It was really cool because like we stopped to eat lunch there because Domino's had a freaking booth. Sure. They sold freaking pizzas. But yeah, we stopped to eat lunch and we just stopped right in front of them just watching people. It was great.
Wow.
There was this one particular interaction that was absolutely hilarious. So we saw this really, really good Captain America cosplay just walking around every now and then. And at some point, that dude picked up a lightsaber. There was a Captain America with a lightsaber just walking around. And it was just like, I didn't know I needed to see that, but that is awesome.
Fantastic.
He got into the ring at one point.
Oh wow.
At, like near the end. And I guess just completely coincidentally, because I don't think these two people knew each other, there was this other guy who was like a treant. He was on full stilts, like vines wrapped around his legs, full druid treant look, right? Like leaves and all this other stuff. And I think he had a some kind of weapon that his costume had, because I don't know if it was from something, but he looked like a treant. And of course, Captain America has a shield. And they went in and fought each other, and it was Captain America versus this giant treant.
Oh man, that sounds epic.
It was.
Oh,
it was
only
sick.
at a con.
Only at a con.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Now I want to go to a con. I've still never been to a con.
Dude, cons are awesome, but I definitely feel like there's a way to interact with cons that you have to go in knowing what you want, because we didn't know what to expect. This was our first con experience. We just kind of went in and
for both of you.
We're gonna walk around. We're gonna look at some stuff. We know we want to hit Artist Alley at some point. There's some people we want to check out who we know are gonna be there, but we didn't really have like a plan. You really have to have a plan going into a con, because one, there's too much stuff. You will get lost if you don't have a plan, and if you don't have a plan, you don't get enough of any one thing.
Right. Yeah, I imagine. Yeah. So did you pick up any goodies though? Any you walk away with anything cool that you?
Yeah, we did. We walked away with a couple of cool stuff.
Did you get any minis?
Didn't get any minis because again, I actually, it was on the way out that I saw the mini booth. Yeah, but I got. Well, you'll find out. Maybe.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Soon.
Yeah, if you want to save it.
I can say what it is, but you'll find out. Because I got my in-person BBEG initiative die.
Oh, snap. Oh,
yeah.
snap.
Yeah.
For a table game.
So that's locked and loaded, ready to go at some point.
Can't wait to see that come out. Now,
let me tell you what, it's a player killer. Not a character killer, it's a player killer.
Just throw it at him and it's just like,
this thing is a weapon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you're talking about, a place to like play D&D or whatever RPGs that might have been there. Yeah, I was wondering if there was anything there that was playtesting at the convention, because that's the thing that happens sometimes. Or if I wonder if that's just a Gen Con thing. I remember seeing
it's very. I'm sure Gen Con there's a lot more of it. I'm not saying there wasn't any because I didn't get a chance to look at everything, but there were some tabletop, board game, other stuff like that set up. Like I think I did see a Magic the Gathering, or I think it was just like tabletop card game stuff in general. There might have been Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh type.
Yeah, there's usually Magic going on somewhere. Yeah. There's always going to be a Magic table.
Always. But there could have been other places that like were playtesting their material, but I didn't see any that weren't like already established licensed stuff.
Yeah, because I know Magpie Games, who designed the new licensed official Avatar RPG that basically just came out that we were backers for. I remember seeing a notification from them where they're looking for volunteer GMs to run games in the system at a convention they were going to. I think it was for Gen Con. It's like that's a thing they do, where it's just like, hey, here's an open, Google form you can fill out if you want to volunteer to GM at that convention. And I'm like, oh, so that's kind of cool, and you can just like run some of their tables, and I think they'll give you some goodies as well, to some like memorabilia if you do, or if you do like a certain amount or something like that.
I hope they at least pay for your ticket.
I don't know if they do. I think it's just purely volunteer. Like if you're going to be there, you can opt into that.
Because that's like the problem with that is then if you don't get a ticket into the convention, then you lose your spot as a GM.
Well, I mean, I think at that point it's just like, I guess, assume that you would be able to get there. That part's on you.
Depending on the convention, of course, because like Supanova was pretty easy to get tickets. We bought tickets maybe a couple weeks before the event, and it was fine. Yeah, something like Comic-Con.
I was going to say Comic-Con.
The first minute that the tickets are open, you're not getting into Comic-Con.
Yeah, Comic-Con's probably the worst offender.
Of course.
Yeah, well, both Comic-Cons really.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, I suppose there are many. Yeah, there are many unofficial ones.
Yeah,
but the two main ones, those are definitely the worst offenders in terms of access. Which is why, like, neither of us, except you now, but up to a point, neither of us had a con experience, despite growing up in San Diego. And it's a lot, but I was thinking, that's not really saying much though, because like most people in San Diego haven't been to Comic-Con. It's just so hard to get in there. For even the entirety of our youth, it was just so difficult. And I remember
as a spectator, it's hard to get in.
Yeah, seeing how crazy things would get whenever it was Comic-Con season, and obviously the tickets would go so fast. But then you would have, what do you call that? It's a type of
like scalpers?
Scalpers, yeah. I was gonna say it's basically the type of con in a way, where
it's
the people who
con.
Yeah, where you just buy up the tickets and then just sell them on the streets.
Yeah,
and it's just like, come on,
you sell them right in front of the convention is what you do.
Yeah, right in front of the convention. I remember people hanging out on like at intersections, just selling these tickets and trying to hawk them to people at their windshield or at their windows. It's like. It's chaos. It's chaos.
Yeah. and that's an insane markup that you're buying it at for that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Make their profit. So
yeah, and scalpers, they'll do that for lots of things. It's an interesting sort of hustle.
It is.
Particularly predatory one. But I guess what hustle isn't, or what sort of con hustle isn't.
Yeah. Well, 'cause like there are hustles, and then there's like this new wave hustle. I don't know what you call it, because like hustling is inherently shady, but nowadays hustle has like it's like the sport hustle, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, like you got to hustle, you got to put in some work. Now that's what the hustle is. It's not like a hustle like you're getting hustled. It's like hustle like you are hustling.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. I can't wait to see all the photos and videos that I'll get to see, at least. I don't know if our audience will, of your con experience.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I need to get more minis. I like minis.
Absolutely.
But I need now that I have more of a space to myself, and what I really need to do is get shelves and stuff so I could display stuff.
Befriend some people with 3D printers.
Yeah, that'd be useful. Because there are some crazy models you could get out there that I just see, and it's just like, I could see that, and I could have it. if I can print it.
A 3D printer is insane. It's literally just like, okay, it's not literally just like a button click away, but it feels as close to a button click away from just imagining something and it becoming real, like tangible.
Exactly, right? It's like the closest we've gotten. Yeah. It's modern magic. It is. This is the kind of stuff that you would tell medieval people about. And they would, if you were to go back and tell them about, they would be like, that's literal magic. Yeah, literally magic. You know? Literally magic. Like what you're explaining to me is inconceivable to my mind outside of actual magic.
That's like it's like the Star Trek I forget what it's called. Obviously, the
like their synthesizer thing.
Yeah, the big one is obviously the holodeck, but not the holodeck. It's the one where he gets his coffee from, or his tea, because I'm British.
Yeah, for sure.
It just like it just creates stuff, right? It's like
that's straight up magic.
We have at this point a very close equivalent to that. Just like
it's very close.
In our
you can't
homes.
Eat it. You can't eat it, but it's otherwise pretty close. Yeah. Fair. Yeah, it's ludicrously future technology that you could just get in your living room pretty easily, actually.
I know.
And that still blows my mind. It's still part of that trend of what we've been talking about, which is the fact that the future is now. Like we are currently living.
Future was yesterday.
We're currently living in the future that many of us envisioned as children. And as you've so rightly pointed out, it really the only difference is whether or not you can afford it. But the future, a lot of that technology that we would have considered futuristic growing up is widely available to consumers. Not all of the market can afford it, but if you can live in the future right now. You could have a smartwatch, you can have a self-driving vehicle, you can have a 3D printer, you can have all these future things if you could afford it right now.
Yep. There's a lot of innovations in obviously the accessibility of these fantastic technologies. Have you seen some of the crazy stuff people are doing for like making 3D printers accessible or just smaller and more like consumer friendly?
No, because
obviously there's a big like 3D printers take up a lot of space because they print a 3D thing, right? It's just like you need physical
dimensions,
space to be able to make a thing that will take up space.
Yeah.
But there are some interesting things that people have been doing with just like with printers in general that like just completely bamboozle my mind. There's this tiny like cube. I think it was like this it was just a printer, a regular printer, not a 3D
cube.
Printer. It was a cube that you just program in whatever you want to print. You set it down on the paper and it just like rolls along and prints it in like lines. It's this tiny thing.
It's like a little printer drone.
In your pocket. And it's a printer. It's like a printer car.
It's like a printer Roomba.
Basically a printer Roomba, and it just goes. I'm not sure if that Kickstarter ever got off the ground, but like they had a working prototype, which is insane. And
it's a fantastic idea.
It's a fantastic idea, and it's just like this. It's a portable printer, and you could just print anything as long as you have something to print onto. Because like you don't have to like worry about printer size or like the paper size that go into the printer.
Yeah.
You put it on a surface and it prints.
I mean, at that point, it doesn't even necessarily have to be paper.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Eventually we're going to get to a point where you can just like carry a 3D printer in your pocket.
Now you're saying crazy things.
Hey, listen. Eventually. I didn't say when. I just said eventually.
No, you're spouting nonsense. But yeah, I mean, so many of these things would have been inconceivable not long ago. It's insane the level of technological development that we've reached in recent years, even to the point of it's like, might not be as futuristic in our society as we might, have envisioned. But we're also, at least for the two of us, not incredibly that far in our lifetimes. So, we're still fairly young. Yeah. And the number of innovations that we've seen within our brief lifetimes is incredible. And honestly, more than I might have even expected by this point.
Well, the speed of progress is forever increasing.
It's like exponential.
Progress begets progress, right? Like the more we learn and understand how our world works and how we can like get things to do stuff that it wasn't intended to do. There's especially the more that we embrace, like Adam Savage calls it bespoke manufacturing. Instead of having setups where it makes one thing over and over and over and over and over again really well, we are now moving towards making anything over and over and over again decently okay. Right?
Yeah.
They're not like production level stuff, but you could get it there. It's a start, right? Like there's more of a move towards being flexible and being able to create new things with the things we create. So we're now getting to the point where we're seeing technology built by the technologies that we're building.
Yeah, that's true. Right, with a number of innovative mechanisms or contraptions that could be made out of a 3D printer, for example.
Yeah.
And even a 3D printer can, generate parts of a whole. Yeah. And that you can then piece together into something that's actually functional. And that's
of course the far future Dyson Sphere level technologies, is be able to send one self-replicating drone to some place. It creates more of itself, and then it creates a production unit to create something else, and then eventually we show up and we have an entire ready civilization to just move into. But
oh yeah, that's very science fictional at this point.
But self-replication is already here. It's just like, it's not automated yet, but we easily can get into the point of like making a 3D printer with a 3D printer.
Oh no, I don't even want to think about that yet. Get out of here. I don't want to think about it. That's too existential for me. Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah. So, exponential technological growth. It's an interesting thing. But I was thinking, like, speaking of minis as well, like, did you see Matt Koval's video he did on running level 20 D&D?
No, I haven't been on YouTube in forever, I just realized.
Well, I was thinking of that. That was kind of funny because it came about very spontaneously, his little session of level 20 D&D. And he was talking about how he just sent one of his friends to like the store with money to just buy some mini for some big boss that he could, so that he could use. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, here's a few $100. Get me a big friggin' mini.
Buy me a statue.
Yeah. And it was kind of funny because his friend told him how he like passed up some weird, multi-headed dragon thing. And he was just like, there was a Tiamat that you didn't grab.
Some weird multi-headed colorful dragon that looked pretty generic to me.
Oh, can you imagine? I mean, I'm sure for the budget that he had, he must have gotten a pretty awesome mini either way. But can you imagine just passing up one of those gargantuan Tiamats?
Can you imagine?
Oh my goodness.
Giving somebody $100 saying come back with whatever, and they come back with Tiamat.
That's true. That would also be just crazy. Either way, it's a story. But yeah, like I would love to get those kind. Obviously, that's an advanced hobby level where you're grabbing minis like those, like the big Tiamat one or the big Bahamut ones or the Tarrasque one that WizKids now has available that you can just get.
Tarrasque,
like sure, you want a big official licensed TM Tarrasque, which is I think a first because I'd looked into Tarrasque minis before, and all of the versions of Tarrasques, were all kit bashed for a long time. And so I think the WizKids one that they did recently is the first, to my knowledge, the first official Tarrasque mini, which I think is a big deal.
Yeah, I know there was one model that's been used often for a Tarrasque, and I think it was like an action figure or something like that from...
Yeah, it's some sort of kaiju.
You remember that bad Godzilla film?
Yeah, that's right, the American one.
Yeah. It's that model, because it's very clearly that same lizard. But I think people take that as the base and like add spikes to it and whatever.
Yeah, add spikes.
That's the one that I see most often as the Tarrasque film.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen the exact kit bash model you're talking about. Yeah, that's advanced hobby stuff in my opinion, because that's the point where it's just like you've spent so much money that you're in it now. You better be playing D&D the rest of your life for the amount of money you just dropped on these miniatures.
Yeah, it's just
and you better hope that monster is in the next edition.
Yeah, it's just like it gets to the point where it's like the money that you spent on that one model is just like, oh yeah, it's like a couple $100, maybe $1,000, right? Quadruple digit money spent on this one thing. It gets to a point where like that's just like when you take into the consideration the whole collection, it's like that's just one small fraction of the amount of money you spent on minis.
Yeah.
It's like, it's one mini. But when you take into consideration the entire collection.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing. Just barely dipping my toes into the mini part of the hobby. You know, I've already lost so much money to it, even not even getting incredibly spectacular minis. Because it's just one part of the hobby. That's just a money sink. But it's so cool, though. It's so cool.
Yeah, minis are 3D printer just for like all the fill stuff, all like the goblins and orcs and regular stuff like that. You need a 3D printer for, because it's just that is way too much money to spend on creatures you're only going to see, per game. You're only going to see them every a couple times, but you're going to use them obviously more often because they're the baddies you want to you're going to throw most often at your opponents. But like that's a lot of money to spend on goblins, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are brands too that specialize in making those cheaply, though. Like Reaper, for example, has sort of staked their claim on that and like mass producing very cheaply these sort of basic ad monsters. So, but
do you know how much a 3D printer costs per mini?
Fair. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you can become your own manufacturer, that's always going to be the cheapest way to do things. But yeah, it's like, it's crazy. And plus, with a 3D printer, you also save a lot of money on Hero Forge too. So then you can get Hero Forge, use Hero Forge to basically model your minis and then be able to print those. Because it's a lot cheaper to pay for the 3D models versus getting them to do the printing and shipping.
Yeah, so you make one goblin model, buy the file for it on Hero Forge, and then print out 100 of those bad boys.
Yeah. Well, they also have packs and stuff like that on Hero Forge now of like pre-made generic bad guys. So, and other sorts of groups.
Those packs are pretty good.
There are some pretty good ones. Yeah. They're really awesome. Shout outs to Hero Forge, by the way. The character creator, the video game, basically, is how we've sort of treated it.
I love character creation. I don't know if I've talked about on the podcast or in any public setting my love for character creation in the video game. If there's a character creation element in any video game, guarantee I'm spending like an hour and a half tops, minimum on just making my character.
Yeah. It's honestly one of the funnest parts of the process. And Hero Forge, the way we've kind of discovered Hero Forge to be like character creator the video game is just an incredible pastime. Like, I think you and I both have sunk so many hours into it, but I think you more so than me. But yeah, that's, stuff like that. Those big crazy minis I would love to get into eventually one day. And because they also make just great displays, they're statues. They're things that you can put on your shelf and show off.
Collectibles,
really.
You got to get into like the collection hobby. Like there is a culture around collectibles, and there is a culture around displaying memorabilia and all this other stuff. You got to really get into not just collecting them to use, but like obviously collecting them as collectibles in and of themselves, especially for the licensed stuff, right? The official Wizards of the Coast official licensed big giant things. Those are the ones you want to be like, I have that.
Yeah, especially those that are in limited supply. Like there was only so many of that. There's this famous ancient red dragon gargantuan mini statue that is well known. It's been used in a number of places. I'm pretty sure Matt Mercer has one that he used for Thordak in their first campaign.
Probably.
Those, if you try to find those, it's insane because there was only so many of them. I don't remember exactly how many, but it wasn't a lot. And since there's such a limited supply of them, those who are selling them for incredible amounts. So if you want to get one nowadays, it's like at least several $100 to $1,000+ to get your hands on one of those. And so that kind of stuff is just kind of epic to think about. You know what I mean? The limited supply and just rarity and awesomeness of the design of those things. It kind of creates its own mythicness. But I was going to say also, like, just hearing Matt Colville talk about running level 20 D&D and thinking about epic minis and stuff just makes me, I've just been having such a hankering to run high level D&D lately. I don't know why. Well, I mean, I do know why. I've just explained some reasons, especially after watching.
We actually just talked about it.
especially after watching EXU Calamity recently as well.
Still gotta watch it.
You gotta watch it, man. I gotta talk about that show on this podcast ASAP because if you haven't seen Exandria Unlimited Calamity, you got a problem. It's like
you're not complete yet. You're unfinished.
You seriously, it is legitimately that just as an actual play show. It's 4 parts. Anybody could watch it. It's not. I mean, they're long sessions because they got a lot of story material to get through in each one. The longest one is the finale, which is about 5-6 hours, I think. But it is masterclass, dude. It is legitimately some of the best D&D I've ever seen played, and I thought Critical Role more broadly sort of stood on that totem for me. I was like, oh yeah, there's no way, especially looking back on things that I have a huge fondness for, like the first campaign of Critical Role, for example, but like a lot of Critical Role more generally, they have such incredible storytelling on there, and it's just hard to think of any D&D that has, bigger production value, first of all, but also just better storytellers and storytelling within its very narrative. But when I guess it took Critical Role to one up Critical Role, but they just had to rearrange things a bit and bring in a guest DM. And it was my first time really engaging with Brendan Lee Mulligan as the DM, because I'm familiar with him through the grapevine, but never had the chance to see anything he's done or see any of his work before this. And so, yeah, holy smokes, I was blown away by his DMing. But it's just so masterclass. Like I said, legitimately some of the best D&D I've ever seen played. And it just, again, for you and me who have talked so much about what we think about RPGs in general and what we believe even D&D can be, it just plays into so much of that. And there's so many things that we often complain about, or that we have said that we would love to see, that I just see played out in that show in such spectacular fashion. It is really just, for us particularly, I think just everything we've wanted to see in a D&D game, and it is amazing, and just incredible storytelling, incredible cast. The chemistry is electric. It is amazing. It is amazing. Incredible characters, great collaboration, and it's just a little mini series telling a succinct, tragic story, but everything about the storytelling is just so elevated. The performances, the tightness of the writing, quote unquote, using that term very loosely, but the storytelling is just incredible. And yeah, if you ever want to cry for 4 episodes straight, just watch it.
I'm in.
Yeah, you need to see it. You need to watch it before the next time we record, so that we could do a full spoiler cast on Calamity, and we could talk about all the DMing lessons there are to learn there. But it's amazing. You'll never be the same after watching it, and it will fundamentally change the way you want to run games from here on out.
I love things like that.
It's just a revelation of a game. And
I love actual plays or any kind of D&D or just tabletop media where it's just like, you know what? I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, there have been a number of those too, like not just the Calamity, but there have been a number of different pieces of actual play that have really challenged my paradigms and just made me like fundamentally rethink the way I approach the table, just having seen them. I can think of a number that fill that. But I mean, Calamity was big time though. But just seeing that and seeing higher level play and people just go in, being prepared with that and being ready to tell that kind of story, I was like, oh man, really higher level play is just some of the juiciest and most exciting stuff in D&D if you have good enough players. Because if you don't have good enough players, if you don't have people who already know the game inside and out, it could be a slog fest. But if you have people who know it and are prepared and are going in and ready to go and have been ready to play epic level for a while, it's this really proved to me that it's just like, oh, it's so worth it, because they just go in and they're just like, all right, I got all these. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna use everything at my disposal.
Yep. I have with some of the people here in Aussie land, our little group, we have a high level one shot planned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guess what level it is?
Oh boy, what is it?
It's level 7.
That's considered high level?
That's considered high level for like the at the point we're at. It's like we are nowhere even near touching epic. We're at the point where it's like we're beyond level 3. Like,
oh man,
they were like, yeah, like we've been doing a couple of games. We're ready to try some higher level stuff. But it's like I want to go for like high level, like level 9, level 11. It's like it's level 7. We're gonna start at 7 and see how we go from there.
Yeah. But like for you, for example, you're a very venerable player, and I've DM'd and GM'd for you numbers of times. And just from our own conversations, I know that we both have a fair level of expertise with 5th edition, say. Like, I would be more than comfortable running epic level for you. You know what I mean?
I am more than comfortable playing epic level at...
You're probably ready by this point.
I am ready.
You're just like, I'm so tired of running out of spell slots. Not going to happen when you're that high level. Yeah, it's just crazy. Yeah, you need to get together the right group of people to be able to do that. But I'm so ready. I want to do it. I've honestly had numbers of ideas of like little mini series and stuff to do, and watching Calamity just made me want to go. I want to do it so bad.
There's a couple.
Although even Calamity wasn't strictly epic level too. It was high level, but it's not technically. Really? It's not in the last tier of play by any means. It was level 14.
Level 14? Oh wow. That's still that is still very high level. That is
it's still high level. Yeah.
Solidly.
Yeah, for sure.
Heroes of the realm.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still pretty high up there, and they were well geared too. So people had legendary items and stuff. I mean, the Paladin had a straight up Holy Avenger, and that wasn't even his only legendary item. Yeah, when the Paladin shows up with 29 strength, you're just like, okay, I realize the point we are at now. That's a little minor spoiler to you, but I know I could give away little stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
before
like,
you get into
that kind of stat stuff is just like the spoilers are in what he does with it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just so many things I am so excited for you to see. I need somebody to talk about this miniseries with. There's so much good stuff. It's such a masterpiece. And then they also, after the fact, they did I know they have a discussion coming up for it that as of this recording hasn't been done yet. Probably will be by the time this goes up. But they also did a DMs of Exandria roundtable discussion with Matt Mercer, Bri Iyengar, and Brendan Lee Mulligan. That's an amazing talk as well. Also an incredible just masterclass on learning from true experts, picking their brain.
I need to see Calamity just so I can watch that, because that's one I'm super interested in, because obviously Matt Mercer talking about GMing, I want to hear whatever he has to say. There's, he's got a lot of really good insights on the process. But I also know, was it Brandon or Brendan? Brennan, no D. But yeah, I know Brennan, again, passively through the grapevine. I have seen, I think outside of Calamity, I have seen more of his stuff than you have, just because of passively going through and watch some of his stuff. But yeah, I do also know that he's got some fantastic big ideas on the hobby.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I want to hear just what all these fantastic minds have to say.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I also know that I don't know, I haven't seen too much, but I'm pretty sure I also know who that other GM is. I might have seen her around.
She's been around.
I saw the show that she did on Critical Role, but I think I've seen her do some other stuff here and there, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, she's definitely been around. She's kind of all over the place in terms of making appearances on like everybody's show. Just one of those people
Is she more of a player or?
I think she does have like a show that she GMs for, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, when I see like thumbnails and stuff, I definitely see her more often, I think, in the player seat.
Yeah, but I definitely have seen her as a player for sure.
Yeah. And But yeah, Brendan Lee Mulligan, I was shocked, honestly, because I was shocked in so many ways, because again, I didn't know he was going to be that good going into Calamity. This is my first experience with him. And even people who know how good he is, I saw a lot of comments of people saying like, yeah, this is definitely the best he's ever been. Yeah. And
this is him with a budget.
Yeah, this is him with a budget on the biggest D&D YouTube channel, doing a big idea, and with an incredible cast, right? There's literally a point where he just has to stop in the middle of a scene and just go, "You guys are so good at D&D," and it was just a pure role playing scene too. It wasn't even like a combat thing, just purely off of role playing. And it's true, like that cast was incredible. Like they are all such rich, deep role players, and but. My mind was blown watching that because, again, my first experience with him, I was like, holy smokes, this is good. I didn't realize this was going to be so good. And I didn't know if that was like a fluke or if, this is like, because I normally kind of dismiss him as just being like a comedy guy. But I didn't realize he was just such a profoundly good storyteller generally. And then I watched that DM roundtable and I was like, oh, snap. Yeah, he's clearly somebody that, like us, has thought deeply and at great length about the nature of storytelling and about the fantasy genre generally, and about just how to do RPGs. And it's like he has such huge ideas and such great thoughts and just so many great insights that he makes in that round table that I've definitely taken away from. Including snacks.
What does that mean?
But, I'll have to show you that clip. Yeah. And also, there's just so many like demystifying stuff he does as well that I find super helpful, because we often try to do the same thing where it's just like, hold on, you don't need all this, and that. And like they have a whole conversation there, for example, about like the lengthy backstories and things like that. And they're like, yeah, there's a place for that. That could be great. I love to receive that every once in a while if it gives me a lot of wiggle room. But Brendan rightfully points out something that I think you're going to find hilarious, which is that there are real life people who don't have 40 pages of backstory. Yeah. It's just like, so you don't technically need all that. And really, when I think about it, I mean, yeah, there have been, I agree. There are some great benefits to big, lengthy, bombastic backstories, especially if they give you lots of room to play. But also, I think you gave me one of the best backstories I've ever received in Mr. G. And that was basically one little .txt document. Yeah. Well, it was tiny.
The backstory that I gave, for those who are interested, I don't know if this is published anywhere, but
we've never published it
as a in-universe bit of lore that I handed off to another character. I handed off my entire backstory to another character in universe, because my backstory that I gave was a psych evaluation for a job that he was basically getting, like for his new role as a government official. It was a psych evaluation. So that little document was my entire backstory.
Yeah, and I loved that. That was one of the best backstories I ever received, just because on the account of the fact that it was it was a story in and of itself. And I think a lot of backstories basically become fact sheets. Yeah. But yours, what you gave me, which is weird because as a psych evaluation, it did have facts in it. There was like the psychiatrist was like listing details at certain points, but it was not primarily a fact sheet. It was a story. It was something that was immersed in the world, right? It was a document that you could find in the world that gave you an illustration of who this character was through the perspective of somebody that was not them. And it was just so, that was such an original and rich concept. And yeah, I thought that was really cool, but it was super brief. And it just gave me everything I needed to know about the character, right? Not everything that there is to know about him, but everything you need to know, because it was a story, and stories inherently exclude a lot of information. So,
and you have to consider the reason for handing somebody a backstory, right? Because there's there's your backstory and then there's your bibliography. You don't want to give somebody your entire life story and just be like, okay, like, I mean, your GM, I'm assuming you're giving this to. You don't want to give your GM your entire life story and say, sift through this to find the most relevant bits of information. I'd rather just give them the most relevant bits of information. Here's what I think, here's where I've been, and here's what I do, and here's how I react to certain situations. That's my backstory. Give me a situation, and I will tell you, according to those parameters, how I would have reacted if that had been written in my backstory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to give you the exact word for word recount of when my father left and my mother got sold off to slavery and then I joined the military. It's just like, no, like I had a rough childhood. Done. Like that's what I just told you was I had a rough childhood.
Yeah. Yeah, and if it's not particularly pertinent, at least to the character, right? Obviously, if they had a special sort of relationship, then maybe it's worth going into detail in those sorts of bits of information. But if all you need to take away is that they had a rough childhood, then sometimes that's all you need to put. Yeah. But in so many words, of course, obviously flavor it, detail it a bit, but
yeah, and that comes back down to the difference between lore and story, right? I love that Matt Koval makes that distinction, and he made that whole
lore versus writing.
It was lore versus writing. Like lore is a fact sheet, it's a bullet point thing, right? It's literally just like this, then this, then this, then this, then this happened. If you summarize all that and just say, well, what's the story behind it? What am I meant to take away from all this information? That's what I want to give in a backstory. I don't want to tell you exactly all the the detailed histories of this character. You just need to get the idea, so that when you go in, especially if you're the GM trying to create your own story, you've got your own set of lists of things that are happening that have happened, are happening, and will happen. I don't want to give you another set of lists of things to have to memorize and keep in the back of your mind. That's just me being nice. But like I can tell you that as a GM, when somebody gives me a big backstory, I roll my eyes and then like skim through it. I hate to say it out loud, but like it's like,
oh man, these are hard truths, hard DM truths.
It is legitimately annoying because I know there are 3 things I'm going to get out of it, and you gave me 40 pages.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair,
I'm gonna search through it for a name. I don't even care who it is. I'm just gonna look for a name. I'm just gonna stick it in to the plot somewhere and figure out what happens.
To be fair, I hear you there. I get what you're saying, but I think, I mean, it's not to say that it's bad necessarily to do that. I think that's good. It's a good exercise to do, but
for your own personal.
That's what I was going to say. It's better. It's almost better for the player to go into that level of detail than it is for the DM, because there's only so much of it that the DM needs. Yeah. But I think if you're to do something like that, I think what you need to do is take some notes from the writing industry, right? Where if you're a novelist, you have several different levels of story that you're working at. It's kind of like, those videos, those explainer videos they do now, where it's like the same concept explained at different levels of education or at different levels of complexity. They do basically the same thing in the writing industry, where if you're, say, a novelist, it's like, okay, you got your novel, right? You got your entire manuscript. That's the full thing written out. But then you also have a shorter version. That's called a synopsis, right? And then you have an even shorter version. That's called a log line. Right. And or if you're, say, working in film, right, you'll have your full-length screenplay, your full-length script, and then you'll have a shorter version, which is like a beat sheet or a treatment a treatment. Yeah. And then you might have an even shorter version, which is the log line. The log line's always the shortest version. It's hard to boil your story down any more than bringing it down to a sentence or two. So
I love long line exercises. Just like pick a story that you like and turn it into a 1 sentence, or just boil it down to 1 sentence. If you can do that, you're like leagues ahead of your average storyteller with no experience, right? Like if you can
that's
boil down
the truest test.
Yeah.
The truest test of narrative literacy really is to turn something into a log line. And that's the thing, right? In writing, in professional writing, you have those different levels of story that you're operating at, different levels of detail that you already have to operate at in order to be able to sell your project, but it's also just good information, good exercises to have on hand in order to really prove that you know your story. Because if your story is unclear, then it will be very difficult. Like if your story is unclear to you, then it will be very difficult to boil it down to one sentence. It will be very difficult. But if you know what the core essence of your story is, then it'll be fairly easy to boil it down to one. Maybe not fairly easy. It might still take some effort, but it will be essentially inevitable to boil it down to one sentence. It'll just take some work.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like that's really what that shows. To be able to reduce something that complex that much is something that requires a deep understanding of it. And I would say it's the same way with backstories, right? It's good for you to have all of that knowledge of your character's history and a bunch of details. And it's definitely good to give that to your DM if you have it. But with the understanding that I feel like you should have different levels of complexity to pitch it at, right? Where if you're going to do that, you should also have like a Cliff Notes version as well, just to give the essential information of what is the story of this character. And you could do that in a written form, or you could do that just by having conversations with your DM as well. Like that would suffice too. It's just like, okay, let me give you this big long backstory, but then let's sit down and have a talk to really help you to understand what this character is actually about at their core.
Yeah. I feel like as a GM tool, there should be like a little pamphlet or like a little 1-page document you can hand to your players to fill out. It's like it's in place of handing me your backstory, I'm going to give you this sheet to fill out, and then it'll tell me everything I need to know about your backstory.
Yeah.
Check yes or no. Was your childhood traumatic? You still have your parents.
Living parents. Just the checkbox.
Because there are definitely a lot of, especially in like fantasy heroic literature, like there's a lot of tropes that you could just shortcut and just say like, do you fulfill these tropes?
That being said, I'm definitely not opposed to the 40-page backstory idea. It's just
if I have time, I probably will read it. But if I'm prepping, I probably don't have time.
That's fair. But yeah, that's what was also interesting hearing about Brennan Lee Mulligan from the DM's Roundtable is the way he approaches prep. Because what I didn't realize was that I guess his main show, Dimension 20, apparently that's an anthology show.
Oh.
Which means like every campaign is short and in like an entirely different world. So like there's a lot of bespoke preparation that he has to do. And there's also everything about it is just a limited run. Apparently they run for like 20 episodes tops. And so when he's going into, I think that's what prepped him. That was really the boot camp that prepped him to be able to pull off something as artistically titanic as Calamity. Because, I'm like, oh man, how are you going to tell a profound story in 4 episodes? And he's just got like, I've been practicing for this for years. So he already had the creative muscles to be able to pull something like that off. And he's already used to optimizing his campaigns for quick, succinct stories. And so when he jumps into that, but yeah, the way he's able to pull that off time and time again is just heavy prep, and heavy collaboration with his players just to make sure everybody's on the same page. And and he talks about railroading too. And he had just had such unique insights about that because railroading is another controversial subject to touch for DMs. And I'm like, oh, yes, this guy gets it.
Here is something that I have come to realize, especially after running a one-shot a couple days ago with that same group that I was talking about earlier with higher level.
Is this the DM shade time?
Railroading.
Is it time to throw DM shade if any of them are listening?
Well, I have now come to realize that especially for shorter form, I love tangents when it comes to like longer form storytelling, when it comes to like having a campaign. Tangents are amazing. Players are going to get up to shenanigans, and you should just embrace it and go with it and be prepared for just completely going off the rails. But when it comes down to shorter form, one-shot storytelling, there has to be a time where you're just like, no, this is what we're doing, and we're sticking to this because otherwise we're not going to get it finished.
Yeah, absolutely. For one-shots and whatnot, it's essential. Really, there have to be boundaries because essentially at that point, for one shots, like if you got a big long ongoing campaign, you can make that this sprawling open world epic. But if you're doing a one shot, you're not playing an open world game. You're playing a level, and you need to finish the level.
Well, it's like it's not only that, but like I understand this like I understand this desire and this like instinct because I do that too. But you kind of have to just like not poke at the seams of the one level. And there has to be a point where it's like you can start to see the players go like, oh, but what if? Can I do this? Mm-hmm. It's like, no. That's not part of like that's just scenery. That's not part of the plot. That's not part of the story. That's just scenery. That's just there because I said we're in a zoo and this is there, but that's not part of it. Like we're in a completely different part of the zoo.
Sounds very specific. Oh man, I think we could rant for so much longer about DMing and about RPGs more broadly, but I'm afraid we have to wind this down.
I know. Man. I just want to talk about GMing again.
I know. You want to run something epic level right after this?
Yes.
Or play it. I want to run it. No, we need to find it. No.
No.
All right. We'll think of something. Yeah, we really need to get more stuff to run. Yeah. But
tag team GM.
Yeah, for sure. It can be done. Anyway, thank you all very much for listening. This has been the Hypercube podcast. The show is edited by Loryn Pacheco, mixed by Raphael Pacheco, with theme music by Mono Memory. Until next time, we'll see y'all later. God bless.
Rock's fault, everybody dies.